Afternoon. My name is Alan Davis. I'm with Auburn University School of Fisheries, Aquaculture, and Aquatic Sciences. And I'll be participating in this project with Marty Rich to help improve feed formulations for the Florida pompano. Now, my expertise is in nutrition. I deal with both fish and shrimp, but I look at requirements, the use of various ingredients, as well as feed management and general management of aquaculture facilities. So I'm very practical in terms of the research that we do, with the main goal to improve the economic efficiencies of whatever species we're working with. A lot of my work is towards the promotion of plant-based protein sources. And the reason I do a lot of work with that is because that's the best way for us to reduce the cost of the feed while still maintaining economic efficiencies. We're using plant-based proteins right now as the primary protein source for our pompano practical diets. We have somewhere around 10% or less of animal protein, typically poultry byproduct meal or fish meal if you would like that. But in order to continue to reduce the levels of animal protein, to continue to improve our feed formulations, we really need species-specific nutritional information to improve those feed formulations. Now, if you think about different species across a continuum, we have species that are very tolerant to a range of ingredients, very easy to work with. We have others that are a lot more picky, whether or not it's because of palatability issues, whether it's allergies, or simply we don't understand the nutritional requirements, but it's harder to remove animal proteins or fish meals out of those feed formulations. The pompano actually is somewhere in the middle. It's a nice species to work with. It accepts a lot of different ingredients. And we have a little bit of nutritional information on them. So it's a good species to be working with. Now, in terms of improving feed formulations, this is a stepwise process. It's building on previous information. It's not something that just happens overnight. There's a whole lot of work that goes into that. And we start by removing the inexpensive ingredients or the expensive ingredients and replace them with more inexpensive ingredients. But when we start doing that, we start running into issues. We may find anti-nutrients, we may find problems with palatability. So we need to look at the level of restrictions for these feed form ingredients. And that's what we spend a lot of time. But as you replace out these ingredients, you run into some nutritional deficiencies. Quite often, that is amino acid deficiencies, but it really doesn't matter. We may run into essential fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, etc. And then, of course, when we move to some of these ingredients, they're less digestible or they have more undigestible components, non-starch polysaccharides. So the use of supplements, for example, enzymes quite often is there. Now, I've done quite a bit of work with Florida pompano over my career. We have over 28 publications dealing with pompano nutrition. We've looked at a range of ingredients that can be used in commercial feed formulations. Again, we're very plant protein-based oriented. We still use animal protein, whether or not it's a poultry byproduct meal or quality fish meal, but we want to reduce those because those are expensive ingredients. We've also done a fair amount of work with amino acids. We identified taurine as being a requirement for a pompano. We've also looked at the methionine. Most recently, we've looked at lysine requirement. And we've also looked at feed effectors or attractants and other things like supplements and enzymes. Now, just to use an example, work that we just recently did with methionine requirement with Marty, we're looking at some sort of dose response where we take a practical feed formulation, come back with varying levels of an amino acid specific to what we're looking at, and look at that dose response to identify what we're going to be looking at. Now, as I said, we've already identified taurine as the first limiting. We've looked at lysine and methionine. So the next amino acid that we feel is important for us to look at is that of arginine. And there's a nice review article if anybody wants to look at it in terms of arginine requirements. And they are quite wide in terms of different species. But it's a very important amino acid in terms of it functions and a lot of other things, not just simply protein deposition, but there's a lot of things like immune function. And so it's a very important species. So what we'll be doing with our research is, again, looking at this dose type response. We've got a practical diet that we've used before, contains about 15% poultry byproduct meal, soybean meal, corn protein concentrate. What we're basically going to do is take that and dilute it by about 10% with a crystalline amino acid supplement, which will then allow us to knock back the amino acids that we want to look at, and then we can come back with a dose response. And so to me, this is probably one of the next amino acids that needs to be done. That is the reason we have suggested it. I'll be working with Marty Rich on this research, and I'm looking forward to having some good data for you guys at the end of this year. In terms of where we are with the research, we're at the base. Basically, they're working on contracting right now. We'll start arranging to get fish as soon as the contracting is done, and then we'll jump into the work and see what we can get done. If anybody has any questions, hopefully I'll be on the call. But if you're listening to this right now, it's because I'm out sampling. Hopefully we're having a good day. But happy to answer questions later on or drop me an email. Thank you very much for your time.